Welcome back to Central University. This is Core 52, and we are in chapter 17, entitled Son of Man. And I found this to be one of my favorite chapters to this point. A lot to learn about the phrase Son of Man. I think that's something that maybe we've never paid attention to, or if we tried to pay attention to it, we didn't know what to do with it. Mark Moore does a great job of helping us understand the phrase Son of Man. He quotes Daniel 7:13 when he says, "Behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man." And so this is really going to speak to the idea of Jesus being fully man and fully God. This title gets to both of those things. And I think that's why it's Jesus' favorite title. The use of Son of Man is used and is consistent throughout the entire Old Testament, with the single exception of this Daniel 7 passage. In this unique passage, David had a vision. He saw God exalted on his throne. There suddenly appeared a divine figure, one like a son of man, who is brought into God's presence for a stunning power move. To him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages shall serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. And so Mark Moore begins to lay out the fact that the Son of Man is used a certain way throughout the Old Testament, except this one instance in Daniel 7 where it's used in this very divine way. And he goes on to say at the bottom of page 114, we can conclude that only Jesus is the Son of Man. He was virtually the only person to call himself this. And he called himself almost nothing else. It was Jesus' favorite title for himself. So if the term is one of deprecation, except in Daniel, where it implies extreme exaltation, how does that jive with Jesus? How can Jesus be the exalted Son of Man who humbles himself on the human plane? Well, that is precisely the point of the incarnation. And so what we begin to see in this title of Son of Man is both Jesus' humanity and his divinity. We see both his exaltation as well as the way that he humbled himself and came to earth and as a man and lived a life of humility. The big idea is this, that when we humble ourselves, God exalts us. It's a hard and fast rule in Scripture. Jesus modeled this spiritual law throughout his entire life. He came in the incarnation and he rose in resurrection. He was born into poverty and he ascended to a throne. He died on a cross and now he wears a crown. Son of Man is therefore the perfect title for Jesus. Identifying himself with frail and fragile humans gives space for God alone to exalt him. So this is a really interesting and fascinating phrase, this Son of Man. And one of my favorite usages of Son of Man is when Jesus is before Caiaphas, just before his crucifixion, and he is being quizzed, and he says, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?" The question was a setup. If Jesus said yes, he'd be executed for blasphemy. Jesus responded, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." So Jesus used that phrase about himself, and he uses it at the moment of truth as he stands before Caiaphas that would ultimately lead to his crucifixion. So this is such a powerful theme in the life of Jesus. his humanity and his divinity. At the end of this chapter, on page 117, he says, for those who grew up in Christian homes, the idea of God becoming a man seems natural and reasonable. The reason is because we've heard it so much, it becomes natural to us. But for most people, however, this is a nearly impossible idea, especially for Jews and Muslims. If you think about it, they have a point. How could the great God of the universe squeeze himself into the frailty of humanity? But isn't that the point? Isn't that the point of who Jesus is? Isn't that the point that God can pull off anything, and he does things differently than we would ever anticipate? The key points of the chapter: in the Old Testament, Son of Man was a title of human frailty, except for in the book of Daniel. Jesus alone is Son of Man in the New Testament. It was his own title for himself. And Son of Man is the perfect title for Jesus because it demonstrates his humility, which led to his exaltation. His humility also set a precedent for us to follow. The example of Christ that we see, God in the flesh, humbling himself, entering humanity, living his life the way that he lived his life, not only set up the atonement process in which we needed, but it set the example for the way that we should live our lives. Humble, servants, sacrificial. That's the life that we've been called to by the Son of Man.